Hello and welcome back to a new Kerbal Space Program video and a new episode in the Minmus colonisation collaboration with benthebest5. Starting our episode off as always with having a look at what happened the previous time, aka the base at its current form. And if you haven't seen Ben's previous video, well, the last episode in our case from yesterday, then be sure to check it out. So, the base is now actually completed, the entire construction, especially thanks to the last and latest module from Ben from yesterday, like I said, and that was or is a science module with all sorts of necessary science experiments as well as storage for experiments that can be taken away with the small little buggies to set up a surface science from the Breaking Ground DLC surface science outpost. So now, since there's no crew aboard the base the service base, the next mission is to bring the crew to the base, and this is what today's goal is. And for this purpose, since just sending a regular craft, a regular lander, I might say, is a bit, not really fitting for this channel. So that's why we're going with a nice SSTO, and I decided to show the speed build here. So yeah, I think the construction is a bit pretty much self-explanatory so far. We went, obviously, because we need to bring crew. We have a crew cabin, and everything else is Mark 3. Well, I've built it around the Mark 3 because we needed the cargo bay that you can see at the moment in the front. However, I'm going to move it in just a couple of seconds. I'm going to change it with the crew cabin because I want to have the crew cabin right behind the capsule so that the Kerbals can transfer through the can transfer from the cockpit into the crew section. But we needed the cargo module because I wanted to bring with us some small little payloads that will be more or less utilitarian usage. So as you just see here, this small little, well, I don't really want to call it a drone, even though it has a probe core in it. It is mainly, the idea of that is that it is a small excursion vehicle for Kerbals to fly around with those small little thrusters, having the ability to really explore a bit the immediate surrounding without having to walk, but use a small little, like a jetpack, but not their real jetpack, but just some small craft to run around. And here we're doing the change because, like I said, we want to transfer the crew through the passenger model, and with that we have here a nice takeoff after wobbling a bit around because I pressed the wrong buttons there. And by the way, you can see now a small difference between the craft that we have built in the speed build and this craft taking off. The difference is that the two engines, well, on both sides, on both sides, just before the wings start, the small Mark II Rapier, Mark 1 fuel tanks and the Rapier engines were added after I completed a small test flight and realized that, well, we were using up too much fuel, or we had to use too much fuel and burn too much fuel and thus get lighter, shed weight before being able to accelerate through the 400-ish meters per second mark where the Rapiers really kick in. So we just needed a bit more thrust weight ratio, and that's how I solved that issue. The other small thing that I haven't touched up on yet, even though it is rather important, is that the wings, the big space shuttle wings, like the big S wings, I think they're called, that these are angled just a tiny bit up, so that we're having that we generate passive lift. And what I mean with passive lift is while we're pointing straight or in line with the velocity vector, that we are still generating lift, because in Kerbal Space Program, lift is only generated when you are actually offset from the angle, from the speed marker. There you go. So that the airflow it is only simulated that the airflow generates lift when you're pushing the air down. So when you have a positive angle of attack in that regard. So that's the point, or one very important point why I have actually the wings pointed like angled up a tiny bit, so that we are doing that so we don't have to pitch up too extremely hard. And this is very useful when you're doing low speed maneuvers as well as during the ascent, so that you reduce the general amount of drag that we have. So now going into the maneuver, this time I'm actually showing the maneuver because I split the maneuver in two parts. A first small racing orbit racing maneuver, and then the second real encounter burn thingy, and where we just to get our final encounter in the second pass. And I just kicked in the ray pistons. We had excess oxidizing. However, now back to a test flight where the SSTO was deorbited from low Kerbin orbit, just to showcase you guys that this SSTO is really stable and can safely bring back the crew after its mission if it does, if the Jeb and Valentina desire to bring the craft back home. So I decided to showcase the fact that it is easily landable on the KSC. Well, yeah, that's just pretty much just to showcase the design works very well. And anyways, the other thing is we're on a re-entry, which was very stable, surprisingly stable. We undershot actually quite a bit because it burned too long retrograde, but that's not that big of a deal. We still had, like I said, after going into low Kerbin orbit, more than enough, well, slightly less than half the fuel. And that's why we could just burn a bit our engines to fly back to the KSC, and then we actually overshot and did a small turnaround. Now coming in for a nice, landing. Thanks, like I said, to the up angled wings, our stall speed is very slow and we can go for a safe touchdown. And here a nice drifting slide to until a stop. Really beautiful landing on that part. And with that we have shown that this SSTO is easily capable of getting back home. Now back to Minmus. So we saw the transfer burn and now we're at Minmus. I'm actually going to be quite honest, I had to do this a second time since my hard drive was full and I just had to more or less do the last bit. Again, starting from a quick save I had in low Kerbin orbit, so that's why the fuel is just a tiny bit off, I think by like 100 or something units or something like that, so there's not that big of a difference. Anyways, now deploying in high Minmus orbit are a satellite, or at least that was planned. However, I have no idea why, but probably during the speed build, when I placed the satellite a second time in the cargo bay at the rear after moving the cargo bay, somehow the probe core got lost, and this is very unfortunate. So now we actually deployed unnecessary space debris in orbit around Minmus, even though it was planned to be like a small service satellite. Even though it had would have had communication capabilities, since it's now the probe core, well, we don't have a probe core, it can't function as a communication satellite. So the idea was anyways to be some sort of elliptical orbit like it is actually, and be something like a research probe along those lines actually. But sadly, like I said, we didn't have, somehow lost the probe core. I have really no idea where it got lost. Maybe actually I have forgotten to put one in the first place, so I should have actually paid attention to the speed build whilst that was going on. But anyways, so after that everything else is rather simple. I mean, we're just heading, got in a nice polar orbit, reduced the polar orbit, and then waited until Minmus rotated underneath us so that our trajectory would come, or we would pass over the landing site, then deorbiting, doing a small amount of correction burns, and that's not that big of a difference, those correction burns in total, just to get a nice aligned flight at the towards the base. Then we are just slowing down as regularly as a regular landing, and deploying obviously the landing gear, since, well, we do want to land on the landing gear and not just on the tail fin, even though our engines are obviously pointing downwards. But if you want to see more SSTO landings, then feel free to go and check out other SSTO videos. I actually have an entire SSTO playlist on the channel, so this is definitely interesting for you. And for the eagle-eyed among you, you just maybe realized, or well, yeah, saw that the footage speed has decreased. That's because the previous part was all in, I think, twice, like 200% backplay speed, and now we're down to regular speed. So now you can really start feeling that all those parts in the base are starting to kind of, well, I don't really want to say reduce the performance, but you start to, well, you really are feeling that there are a bunch of parts connected to each other. The other thing is sometimes the connections are wobbling in the base, and this is something that you can realize or just see every time when you're building a larger structure out of multiple different crafts. But yeah, anyways, enough talking about that part in that section. So now we've landed. However, we do want to turn around the SSTO just a tiny bit so that we're pointing towards the kind of towards the space just in front of the base itself, and just get a tiny bit closer before actually bringing out all of our nice little Kerbals that are that have come to this space to enjoy their stay here on Minmus, because who doesn't love the minty moon of Minmus, right? And of course commence this scientific operation of the base. And we have here a nice little ladder, especially made for the crew to embark and disembark the craft. But now we're going to take Jeb out, but of course Jeb is going to jump out from the wrong side. This is so typical for Jeb. He always loves to do the things in his own way, right? So, but until I brought out all the Kerbals and things, we're going to jump forward, since that actually took quite a while with this rather low frame rate. So with that, we have now a beautiful scenery, having the SSTO in front of the base nice and neat in the background, as well as the small one of the two buggies that are around, being crewed this time, and one of the two small little excursion vehicles that we've brought with us in the SSTO as well, and the other crew members lining up, and one even standing atop of this SSTO. Definitely a beautiful sight to behold. I really like the way this screenshot, actually, probably the thumbnail, pretty sure it is, they haven't done that yet. Kind of the looks of it is really beautiful, and I really like the way this entire project and collaboration itself is going along. I mean, we have completed such a beautiful fade, and not too long ago on the KSP Discord server, somebody complimented us how beautiful and how awesome the space looked, and that really made us, or at least me, very happy. And with that being said, we're going to go over a nice UI-free shot of the base where you can enjoy it in all its glory. And on this note, I hope you have really enjoyed today's video, as well as the entire series so far. And on this note, thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to check out the other videos in the series, as well as benthebest5's channel. So on this note, thank you guys very much for watching, and until next time, Spaceship signing out. Enjoy the rest of your day.